Welcome, everybody. I'm so excited about our speaker tonight. We have been friends for many, many years. I'm going to let him tell us that story, but I want to introduce George Araujo. He's not only the head coach of Team Mexico, who my daughter had the privilege to play for, thanks to Coach Araujo, but he's also the associate head coach at Cal State Fullerton for many, many years. So, Coach, I'm not going to step on your bio. I'm going to let you introduce your background and tell us more about you.
Yeah, you got it. You got it. Well, man, Sherry, it's been quite a ride, right? It's been a lot of fun, a lot of ups and downs, and it's been a few years for sure.
I remember the poker parties, okay? That's how we did fundraising in those days, everybody. So I
That's for
think it
sure.
wasn't it 12 you that we first came together?
No, well, I can share I can
Yes.
share the story a little bit, I guess. Well, at least what I recollect. You and Ed
Okay.
might remember it a little bit different because I was from a different side of the road there. But I remember starting in travel ball at 10U. I don't know if you remember Susan
Yes.
Rodriguez. Do you remember Susan?
Yes, of course I remember Susan.
Yeah, well, Susan's the one that got me into travel ball back in those days. She had an older daughter, Stacy, who
Yep.
obviously played with Shannon for a little bit, and uh, but anyway, she asked me to coach the Lakewood ladies, so she's the one that got me going with travel ball, and
Wow.
started the Lakewood ladies, and I remember I was kind of I don't know if I want to do travel ball. Maybe I'll stay in eight and under one more year, right? My daughter was younger, and well, anyway, she convinced me. And I remember going out to a field one day and talking to Mike Freeman.
Oh,
I don't know if you remember Mike Freeman.
yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, daughter was a great player at
Yep.
Arizona State, right? So Mike tells me, "Hey, you better get some bigger players. You better get some big, stronger players." And I thought, well, no, I think we'll be okay. I was coaching rec ball, and we're winning people by bunting them and stealing and knowing how to run the bases a little bit better than everybody else and all that stuff. And then one tournament and I've told this story before, but I don't think I've told it from this side. But I remember the Lakewood ladies' first 10 and under tournament, and we're playing at Old Independence Park. I don't know if you remember that
Yep.
field out in
I
Downey,
sure do.
California.
Yep.
And we go through Saturday, we win a couple games on Saturday, and then all of a sudden we get to Sunday and we're about to face a team called Storm.
Oh my gosh, I
Do you
remember
remember that
that
team
too.
that you and Ed
Yep.
had?
Yep, that was
Yeah. So
us.
that
Oh my God, do you want
yeah.
me to tell you who was on that team? That team was
Yes,
decorated.
yes. Remind me
Okay,
who was on that team.
Hallie Wilson, Emmy Kerner, Lauren Chamberlain. Let me think. I remember Allison who pitched at San Jose.
Yes, yes.
I can't remember all of them, but those are some notable players. If you guys, this was the class that my daughter was in college, class of 11 through 15, and they played everywhere. This was an amazing group of young ladies.
Yeah, incredible team you and Ed had back then. I mean,
Well,
geez,
they
you talk
won
about
nationals in 10 and under.
they did.
They
They
won.
did. They
Yep.
sure did. Yeah, they
Yep.
won nationals, and I mean, you talk about Hallie Wilson, right? And
Yeah.
Lauren Chamberlain. Holy moly! Well, I remember coming across that team, and we got crushed. I mean, you guys just crushed us. I was like, holy moly! Okay, so this is travel ball, and I decided to take Mike's advice, and right away I started making phone calls to
Oh
get
my
get a bit
gosh.
bigger players.
Yeah.
Get little bigger players, and we did, and the Frannies, right? Mariah Ramirez and
And
those
let's
kids
talk
and
about
Katie
big. I think
Mayhew.
she was 5'7" as a 10-year-old.
Yeah. People would
Yep.
want to see her ID, right? Check her ID
Yeah.
everywhere we went.
Hmm.
It was some good times, right? Coming up and getting to meet you and Ed, and then obviously the rest was history, right? I remember
Yeah.
meeting with Ed at a small little restaurant, and at I think this point we're 14 and unders, and he wanted to combine teams, and I wanted to combine the teams, so we merged up and man, put all that great talent together, right? I mean,
Oh,
that
that
was
that was something else. I've never seen a team like that since then, honestly. And it's because I think I always say they put their guns down and said, let's play together. We had kids coming from, 2, 3 hours away in Southern California that could have been on the
yeah,
shortstop on their own team. But the reason that I thought of you tonight is I hear so much about the lack of technical skill being taught out there today. And I deal with the uncommitted kids, anywhere from 14 and under, 16 and under. And man, these coaches, they just do their best. But I always talk about George Araujo, the master of infielding skills. And
Thank you.
my daughter still says best infielding coach I ever had. So give us some tips. Like, where would you start? Let's talk about the kids that are remote, because I told you that when we chatted, a lot of my kids don't get to practice with their teams a lot. They're very remote, and what can they be doing at home? What are some drills or techniques that you think are important for them to be focusing on?
Well, definitely, obviously it depends the age group, right, that they're in. I'll start with a little bit. Here's just a little warning that I've noticed through the years. It's not so much a technique, or it's not so much. It's more of about a bad habit or something. Is sometimes the parents want to rush their kids to move up quickly, right? From 8 and under, go play 10. If you're an 8 and under, go play 10s. You'll see better competition. Yeah, I was just kind of referring to the size of the ball, right? Don't try and put a bigger ball in the hands of an infielder sooner that they need to. A lot of times a bad habit develops, and that is pushing of the ball, right? They start kind of pushing the ball a little bit because their hands are too small to throw the bigger ball, right? That's number one at the younger ages. Now, as you move up, obviously there's tons of drills now. Back in the day, if you remember, there wasn't a lot of YouTube and all that stuff, so we'll put drills together. But I would go on YouTube, man, and find stuff that you like and that can be beneficial for the young athletes, right? Stuff that they enjoy. There's so many great drills on there that didn't exist before, right? And then secondly, just watch good infielders. What do they do? What's their pre-step like? What's their throwing like? What do they look like? How do they move? Right? Just watch good infielders play, at a high level softball or any level. You can tell when an infielder's a good infielder just by watching them, just like you can a good dancer, right? You can see a good dancer just by them dancing.
Hmm.
Same thing with infielding. If
I was going to say, name a few of them, because I think of Sis Bates, but she's not there anymore. She's all graduated. Who are some of the great shortstops or infielders that you would want our listening audience to put their eyes on?
Well, you know what? I'll just say it might be a little biased here, but we got a really good one at Cal State Fullerton, and a kid by the name of Sarah Perez, who I think she's one of the top infielders, top 10 for sure in the conversation in the country, right? But then you go look, like you mentioned, my niece, Anissa Ortez with Athletes Unlimited. Man, what
Yeah, she is amazing. I think he is getting like a call waiting, some kind of interruption on his phone, maybe even messages coming in. But his niece is Anissa Ortez, and she played at gosh, I'm blank at what college she played at, but she's up in Michigan now, and she's still playing Athletes Unlimited. And she is probably one of the better shortstops my daughter's played next to. My daughter played third on the same time, but she then played for USSSA Pride too. So she was definitely, and I always say he taught them like they literally floated in the air. Their footwork was amazing, and it may be hard to explain on a phone call of how he teaches them to move their feet and the type of drills to do. So, and I'm definitely happy to take questions if you guys want to DM me. There you are, George.
Yeah, I'm here. I hope you can hear me.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
good. Yeah, my niece played at the University of Utah, and she was, an amazing infielder, and just kept continue to develop. But she's a little unorthodox, so I'm for the idea of, hey, make plays, get outs. That's the name of the game, right? Develop a good arm. That's huge. And I agree with you. I wish we were able to show some video or something where we can, kind of show some of the fundamental stuff. But I hope your
yeah.
audience kind of gets it.
Well, there's always a controversy because I've always coached the younger age groups. What I see so many people, I call it throwing sidearm, because I think there's a time and a place when you use a slot throw, but I see a lot of kids just using it all the time, and my elbow hurts when I see them do that. Do you see the same thing?
I do. There's a proper way. Yeah, a lot of people will call it sidearm or underneath, right? We like to call them arm angles or arm slots.
Hmm.
I think that's a better definition when we're doing it right. It's just develop. Basically, it's an overhand throw, you just kind of angle or slot your arm into a different position, right? So you're throwing overhand, but just imagine, your hand going down to the 3 o'clock, right? And sometimes some kids will throw it down from the 5 o'clock. But you try and maintain that same overhand throw. Basically, you're just changing the arm slot or the angle of the throw. If you call it sidearm, or sometimes we say sidearm, right? That tends to be real spinny. They'll
Mm-hmm.
kind of spin the ball a little bit, and the ball kind of doesn't have the same juice or the same power going across the infield. So, I don't like to use that term too much, sidearm. I rather
Yeah.
use like arm angle or arm slot, so they have a better idea, at a younger age.
Is there
That's a
an
key, boy.
age?
That's a
Yeah.
key. Well, I'll tell you what, out in the recruiting circuit, that's for a shortstop, it's a must, right? For all positions, it's a must. But for a shortstop, you got to have those good arm angles and those good arm slots to be able to turn those double plays and get rid of the ball quickly. Um, I find that if you don't have those good arm slots, you might have a really good arm, but if you can't get that ball into that arm slot, or get the arm into a good slot to throw it quickly, then you're going to miss out on a lot of good plays, and you're gonna not get outs as much as you could. So
So
arm
what
slot
is a
throwing
good
is huge.
technique? Do you have a drill that you use, or how do you teach a first time coach, out there trying to teach the proper throw? What I'd asked him is, how to teach the first time thrower, learning the arm angles and the slot throws. So I'm sure once that call goes through, he will be back because that's what's been happening here. But if all of you guys don't mind sharing that we're on and that it's George Araujo with Team Mexico and from Cal State Fullerton, I'm sure he'll be right back up. But any other questions, you can put them in the message right here on our space, or you can message me directly. I'm happy to answer them or bring them up as questions for him. But we're looking to hear some tips and techniques and the best drills that you can do, even on your own, maybe not even at an actual practice. So we're waiting for George to be back here. It was kind of bipping in and out for a minute there. And sometimes, George, if you can hear us, you may hang up and dial back in. It may just be a disconnect there too. Sometimes that happens. We've never had this many
Am I
difficulties.
there now?
Oh,
Can you
there
hear me
you are.
now?
Yep, yep. Could you hear us the
There
whole
you are.
time?
I could, yeah.
Are you
Yeah, I could
getting
hear
call
you now, but
waiting or messaging or anything
you know
coming through?
what? I just put it on do not disturb,
I
so
had
maybe
to do
that's
it
what it
too.
was.
That's what happens on my
Yep,
side.
I didn't.
Yep. So
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was it, but hopefully this will help a little bit.
awesome. I was saying, maybe you
Yeah.
can tell
Well,
the
let me
audience
go. Let
about.
me go back to. Let me go back to what I was kind of mentioning, because I think this is important for arm slots, right? For the younger ages, is that when you see the elbow touching the hip, right, or the belt area, you want to make sure that that elbow is separated from the hip, right, as they throw. If the elbow is touching the hip, I don't know if you can visualize it,
Hmm.
right? They'll tend to push the ball, right, on your arm slot throw. So just one little tip is make sure the elbow is there's a gap, right? There's a gap between the elbow and the hip as they're making the throw. That's a big one. So then that's easy to spot, without and probably I hope your audience can visualize that a little bit.
So when you take them through your, you have famous infielding clinics that you do. Give us an idea of how you set that up. What kind of things do you go through on your infielding training?
Well, I was pretty fortunate to play for a very, very good infielding coach and a great collegiate coach, John Scalinas at Cal Poly, and I
Wow.
learned so much from him, and how to structure a practice, how to structure a rotation, right, and a really good process for it. But you start with a base. I like to use a lot of cones. Again, it depends on the age group, right? But you could never go wrong with cones and stationary balls, right? Right. Slow it down, ball in front of you inside one of those soccer cones, right? Where you can put the ball right on top and
Hmm.
just kind of slow it down and separate the hands and go into a throw. And just that with a basic cone, you can set up um, stations where you can go from a throw on the run, a stationary slot throw like a shortstop would make in the 5-6 hole, with a little step throwing a second or stationary arm angle throw, throws on the run, the ground ball right in front of you. You can set a bunch of things up with cones. And again, I wish we had some video and I could
I know.
show you some stuff. But I hope
We'll have
hope
to
you're
do
getting a
that
good
live.
good
We could
visual.
actually do that live.
Yeah, yeah, that's next on the list.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah,
Uh,
and then again, when it's all said and done, right? When it's all said and done, it's just the good old fashioned ground ball. Just taking a lot of ground balls over and over. Some at a fast pace, some at a rolling pace. Hand rolling stuff, fungo stuff, machines. We just bought a new machine. We were out in the Mary Nutter out here in Palm Springs,
uh,
and I saw an infielding machine, and I had to go buy it.
oh,
We
of
had to
course.
buy it, right?
Of
Because,
course.
their machines are just so awesome because not everybody can hit a fungo.
Yeah.
And if you remember that 10 and under and 12s, not every coach can do that. Especially if you're getting assistant coaches that are, parents and
Right.
that really can't hit the fungo. A machine is great to have, right? So, that's a lot of the stuff that I do there, but a lot of catch play. Man, Sherry, you remember, I don't know if you remember practices, but at young ages, a lot of catch play, right? Catch, throw with accuracy, with good
Yeah. And no
fundamentals
standing around
over and
waiting
over
for the
again.
next one. Everybody was moving.
Man, isn't that one of our pet
Yeah.
peeves, right?
Yep.
I go to practice, you'll be surprised, even at the collegiate level. I've been to, watching some practices and then there's like, 5 girls standing around for a ground ball, right? And all
Yeah.
that. That's just not productive. You guys should always have, a couple girls fielding, a couple girls catching or throwing, and a couple girls catching in, right? A little triangle going on where maybe the girls what I do a lot, Sherry, is I'll cut the base off the bases, the pegs,
Right.
old bases. I'll just cut those off and then I use those. So we'll have a ground ball station. They'll throw to a cutoff base. Maybe on that cutoff base, they'll be working on stretching, right? And then on the other base, they're working on their tagging and they're just rotating around that little circuit. So that's something that we like to do a lot. And it's just more productive than 9 girls standing around for a ground ball, right? Waiting to throw the ball back to a coach. Um, I find that to be real productive. But man, catch play is huge
Yeah.
to
We learned it from
develop good
soccer. It's
habits
like
at a young
ball
age.
touches, right? How many times can you touch the ball is more important than, the
Yes.
actual drill or a coach that stands there and talks about it for 15 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go. Let's take some ground balls and that's the name of the game, right?
If you guys are just joining us, George and our families played together. His daughter and our daughter played together in the 10 and under and went all the way up into 14s playing either with each other or against each other. And then even in college, I mean, we were naming some of the names that, our daughters played with, and we all played in college together. It was really an amazing time. But George is very famous for his infielding drills and his technique and his teaching. He is the associate head coach at Cal State Fullerton, and head coach of Team Mexico, which our daughter also got a chance to play with. And so we're talking about drills and techniques and the best things. And so we're waiting for his phone to get back with us because it keeps beeping out.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go. So you were going to say what's different now today than it was in the past.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, well, obviously the YouTube and the social media, right? Stuff that you can learn on there is great. Which is better, right? There's a lot more there's some good teaching going on there. The problem is sometimes that it's hard to really teach it if you're just watching it off a video. Usually the athletes that have played and played at a high level, they're usually really good at teaching it. Um, or the baseball players, right? People that have actually done it. It doesn't mean that someone that hasn't done it can't teach it, but you got to be careful that you're not teaching bad habits because bad habits in infielding are really, really hard to fix as you get older, right? Your arm slots, like we were talking about, or your throwing, right? I call them like
Right.
dart throwing or body angles and stuff are hard.
Are you still seeing
So
a
I
lot
think
of
it's
that out there on the recruiting trail?
You see a lot of kids with some really bad habits, well, I see them at my field class, right? I
Yeah.
get kids that come in and they want to get fixed. And it's really, once they're 14, 15, and they've really established a bad throwing habit, it is tough to fix. I mean, they've really got to work really hard at it. It's not that they can't fix it, but it's tough, right?
Right.
It's tough. And then a lot of them feel like they're running out of time because of the recruiting end, right?
Right.
Happening. So, it's crucial, like I said earlier, to make sure they're using the right ball at the right time. Not want to jump up to a bigger ball, right? Because then they start getting really bad habits. Um, the longer they can throw the small ball, a baseball, for example, the better off they're going to be because that baseball just creates a little better whip with the throws.
And
But if
fingers.
they want
The way they hold it, I
and
think, is
fingers,
better when they're younger too.
100%,
Yeah, I see the girls
100%. The
whole
mistake
hand
will,
the bigger ball, you're like, "What are you doing?"
yeah, yeah, they palm it, right? They
Yeah,
want to palm it and they want to push it, and then they create those bad habits. But again, just like anything in our sport, right? Developing good habits early on is uh, is huge because some of those things are really hard to fix.
yeah.
So
Any pet
yeah,
peeves
but
that
I
come
think
to
it's gotten better,
mind
man.
that you've got? Any pet peeves that you see out there that you say, "Oh, please fix it"?
I think pushing the ball, right? Pushing the ball, like teach girls how to throw properly, go through the proper throwing progression, right? And there's some good one. Again, I have my own, but there's a lot of good ones out there on YouTube and stuff. Go and find like the Jaeger band guys. They have a really good throwing progression, long toss stuff, to build arm strength and proper ball rotation. And I don't plug them or anything, but I just, they've been to Fullerton and they've actually put a throwing progression together for us in the
Awesome.
past. I don't know if you're familiar with those Jaeger bands, those
Yes,
ones
yep,
are stretchy. Yeah,
definitely
those things, they have
recommend
some
them.
really good.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, they have some really good videos on long toss and good throwing progression
Well,
stuff.
that's an idea for
But
you.
I
You need
think
to
that's
put together a throwing video of your own, George, because you are the master of it and footwork. How about any pet
yeah,
peeves
yeah.
with footwork? Are you seeing them not develop things that they should be developing when they're getting close to the recruiting age?
You know, the best way, and you have a daughter that played soccer,
Mhm.
so man, I always see that soccer players that play soccer at a really young age tend to have really good footwork, right? They kind of
Yes.
go hand in hand, obviously. So it doesn't just have to be soccer, but I notice the girls that play other sports, and I'm totally cool with that. They tend to develop, we're talking 8, 10s before they have to make a decision, if
Right.
they ever do on what sport they're going to play. But multiple sports is really good for developing good athletic skills, good body movements, right? Um, I like to call it kinesthetic awareness, right?
Yes.
Their body moves and all that. Just those quick active sports are really good. And obviously, as they get older, they can be more specific, right, with agility type training and stuff for their footwork and stuff. So, but the more sports they play at a younger age that are mobile type sports, those kids somehow, when you talk to good infielders as they get older and you ask them, did you play other sports? They'll tell you yes, they'll say
Yeah.
soccer or karate or whatever it might be, right? Basketball. There's usually a correlation there. I remember one of the greatest infielders, if you remember Katie Medina, right? Wow.
Oh, definitely. And then Florida, we got to play against her in college. My daughter was at
Yeah,
Kansas, and I think we played Katie 3 of the 4 years in preseason. It was awesome.
yeah, yeah. Won two
Well, isn't
national
she
championships, right? University of
isn't
Florida.
she on staff at, Loyola Marymount now?
She was. Yeah, she was last year, but she's not longer. She's doing, taking care of her kids and raising her
Yes.
family right now. She got two little babies and stuff. So, you know how difficult the Division 1 game can be with the travel and
Yes.
time away from the family and stuff. So she decided right now, she'd be best off with her kids. But man, what a great infielder she was, boy.
Spectacular. And
And
you're right, one of the
yeah,
best ones. Her and Anissa, I always remember Anissa, especially because I got to see her play on Team Mexico. And then, I mean, I've always been a fan of Sis Bates, even though we didn't coach her
yeah.
or weren't around her. But boy, that girl can move. And she's here in the DFW area, so she's out working with some kids.
She
Uh,
is. She
yeah,
is. Yeah, I actually was transitioning. I got hired at Fullerton because she's with Firecrackers where I was coaching with, right at that time, and with Tony and we kind of just missed each other going through that. But I remember watching her at a younger age, and man, she was incredible,
yeah.
incredible infielder, instinctual. And they're instinctual, right? The good ones, they have like this special instinct of knowing where to be and where to position themselves and how to be efficient with their feet and their throwing, and just really, really, really efficient. And I guess, and your daughter had this, right? But, very tenacious. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, my daughter was
Shannon
aggressive.
was
Yeah.
very, yes, very aggressive.
I've got
And
to
yeah, she
send you
wanted every ball.
her highlight video. Her last game was against Mizzou, and she was lights out. I'm going to send it to you because it's going to look like George Araujo's footwork, because she did not have a ball go. She had to throw against Gad Boys, who's still one of the fastest girls that played the sport, and she got her out from her knees. I mean, she went sideways. I was like, what the heck? What a day, you know? So I'll have to
Yeah.
send that
And
to
you know
you because it was great.
what's cool is that she was like that at 10 years old, right? I
Yes.
remember her. I remember her when we merged with you guys, the Lakewood Ladies, and American Athletics at that time.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, and I hope this isn't sharing too much personal information, but I remember when Ed and I met. I just had this. I really didn't want to coach with any. I didn't want to coach. I didn't want any of dads to be part of the coaching staff. I remember
Right.
having that feeling, and
Yeah.
I remember thinking, well, Ed works hard. They just won a national champion. They had won a national championship.
Yeah.
He's got good, talented kids. But my only like hiccup was, but he's got a daughter, right? How's he
Yeah.
going to be with his daughter? Like, is he going to favor his daughter? Is he going to, do the old daddy ball stuff? Man, that was furthest from what I
Oh, I
thought.
know. I
He
felt
worked
the
her so
opposite. Like,
hard.
you
He
make her
worked
work
hard.
harder than everybody. That's not fair.
Yeah, but the crazy part is that it wasn't. I mean, obviously he pushed her, but it was her, right? It
Yeah,
was her that had
it
that
was.
tenacity and that drive. It wasn't like, and he never favored her. He never. Yeah, it was really cool. And like I said, to be a good infielder, you got to be tenacious and you got to
Yeah.
be aggressive and you got to want the ball hit to you, and that you got to have that ingredient. If you don't have that,
Yeah, I remember, he's, bleeping out again here, but, I remember when my daughter was going through the recruiting process, Joe Evans said, "She just looks like she's not having fun. She's just so aggressive. It's just not my style. It just looks like she's just having angst and anxiety." And I was like, "Oh my god, this is the way this kid has been since she was 5, you know?" So,
yeah. Yeah,
but
very
that
focused and very
yes.
driven, and not just your daughter on that team. They were all like that, if you
Yeah,
remember, right? They were all, and that's why they became, national champions and
yeah.
division, collegiate players, and they that year with Ed, they won a national championship
Yeah,
as
that
first
was
year
his
14s.
yeah, that was his 3rd one too.
Yeah, it's not like it was his first rodeo, right? It was like,
No.
yeah, I mean, and how hard it is to win it as a first year 14 team.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Well, and people
That's not
leave,
easy
and I
to
mean, you
do.
know how it is. They left back in that day too. Everybody thinks they can do it different and better, and everybody, and there was people that went to different teams, and man, guess what? Man, there's something about, a bunch of girls that really get each other and have the same vision, mission, and goals, that they stick it out no matter the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the
We
last
do.
one was
Yeah.
him beating Marty, and we love Marty. Marty's one of our favorites, and Marty had the Edwards twins, and the I forget the
Yeah.
girl that went to that was the shortstop that went to UCLA, but they were a year
Yeah,
older.
Stephanie De La Rosa.
Yes, and Ed's like,
Yeah,
"I don't know how we did it because they were deeper in talent and they were a year older, but we did it."
yeah, that was great,
Oh,
and I think you guys came through the losing side. I
yes.
think you lost the first game and came all the way back,
Yes, it was
which
one
was
of those
which was incredible.
grinder days. But what kind of advice? This will be my last question. But what kind of advice do you have the parents of today? Because there just seems to be so many more teams. There's just so much more of everything. What advice do you have to them?
Um, enjoy your kids being kids, right? Enjoy your kids being, and I guess this coming from a father that travel ball father too, right? Before I got into the college game and international game, but just enjoy. Let the coaches do what they do. You have them on that team for a reason, and let them get trained by the best. And sit back and enjoy as much as you can. Now, I, I've been through it too, and I know that's hard to do,
Yeah.
right?
Do you have a
Sometimes you
favorite
pictures
memory
that.
of coaching your daughter? Do you have a favorite memory?
I do, and it's not. here's a quick one for you. So my first year at Cal State Fullerton, my daughter was a senior in high school, and I remember driving out to Hemet. Remember good old Hemet in
Oh,
California?
yes. Mhm.
Yeah. So I remember driving out to Hemet to recruit by myself and listening to music and just thinking about how much I miss my daughter in that drive. You know, it was a 2-hour
Oh,
drive from Downey, right? And I was driving to Hemet by myself. And yeah, my daughter wasn't with me. It was weird.
yeah.
And that's one of my, I guess if I were to say something, is those drives that we used to take in the early morning wake ups, right? And all of that stuff. Obviously the national championships and all that,
Yeah.
that's
Well,
cool too. But to be
I don't
honest with
know
you,
if you
it's the
yeah.
spending time with my kid.
I don't know if you saw the recent Shelley got married in December, and she actually did a dance with the mother. And she's saying that she, introduced it as my mom spent so many hours in the car with me going around the country. And we used to
Yeah.
sing together. And so she played Landslide by Fleetwood Mac. And she brought me up and had a dance with me. I started crying, George, because I'm like, those were the best times, those car rides, the times we got to talk about life and just that time together. We don't have those times anymore. So that's funny you mentioned that
Yeah.
because that just happened to me. I didn't think about it being that special to them either.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, if I had any advice to young parents and stuff, that's what it would be. Enjoy the moments, enjoy it. It's going to be a ride, right? Sometimes it's going to be up, down, but and just enjoy all of it and let your coaches coach. Um, and yeah, and let your kids develop, right? Put them in a good spot for them to have success and let them develop and make sure you maintain that relationship with your kids because Sherry, you and I know how many relationships it could be tough,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes on a house and the pressure with recruiting and all that. It's not easy, but if one thing I do know, if especially in softball, right? In softball, if a kid wants to play collegiately, she's going to do it. She'll do it. She just has to find the right way to, look for the right channels, right? Like yourself, and to get it done. But there's a place for everybody, right? If they follow the right path. It's not like soccer where they're really recruiting international or basketball, and
Right.
it is so competitive, right? But in softball, man, it's there. Anybody can play in college if they like it a lot and get those grades and all that stuff. But there's a place for everybody um, to play at the collegiate level. I mean, you're talking 300 D1 teams, right? And
Yeah.
another, you probably know the numbers better
Oh,
than I
yeah.
do, but another 300 D2 and
Sixteen hundred and
D3s. And
fifty total.
yeah, there you
Approximately.
go. I knew you would know those numbers. I knew you would
I
know
live
those
by
numbers.
those
So
numbers. Well, I even say it's a little bit
yeah,
harder now because there's so many more. Like when we moved to DFW in '07, there was only 5 travel teams. Now I go to a tournament, there'll be 14 or 150 teams in 14U alone. It is
yeah,
the depth of talent is there also. It's not as easy, and then the big money spend. I mean, it costs so much money to play in the bigger, better tournaments, but that's the sorting process, right? You're not just going to show up to
yeah,
any old tournament and walk around down in Mission Viejo. You're going to go to the ones that are organized where the bigger, better teams go, so that you're counting on them to kind of sort through the talent for you, and that makes it expensive for people and
it
that's
does.
yeah, and then I always laugh like they say, "Oh, you cost money." And I'm like, you should invest in me on the front side so I can save you money from doing
Yeah,
these gimmicks along the way,
yeah,
So that's kind of my
yeah.
model. But well, George, I'm sorry
Well,
we
I
had
mean,
technical
I know.
difficulty here today. That was unfortunate. We don't normally have those blips, but go ahead and finish your thought there.
Yeah, no. My thought was, I know the collegiate sports advocate, right? I know, it's in your title, but I always say that, man, get a good advocate, right?
Yeah.
Get a good advocate that's gonna, push you out there and get your name known a little bit, and
Yeah,
because
that
you
was a
can't be
real
everywhere at all
yeah,
times.
that was an intentional name. I really felt like the kids weren't getting represented the way they should. Because they're like you said, there is a place for them to play. And I always say it's their talent level, that the team they're on, where they play is the natural sorting out process. And then you need help. because, like, people may not know, I call you and say, hey, what do you think about this kid? What do you know? And you'd told me years ago there was one kid, nope, nope, she's not going to play where she thinks she's going to play. And man, you were 100% right. And that was one of the models that I chose. I stay with them until they graduate college, so that we can maneuver and
Yeah.
shift and help them find the right fit, and focus more on that. And then comes the portal. Oh my goodness, golly, I never dreamed that would
Yeah.
happen. How is that
Yeah. That's a whole
affecting,
different
yeah,
animal,
how
right?
is that affecting mid majors?
Well, it's good and it's bad, right? I mean, we took a hit last year. We lost a couple kids, in the portal, big time pitchers, but then we also got a couple top kids, so it balances out for us as a bid major, especially in SoCal. We got so many kids that want to come back home here, right?
Hmm.
Um, but it definitely is a conversation now where it wasn't before. So in other words, we have money. Before, obviously it was all high school kids we were going to go after, and that's who we were going to recruit. We never thought about the transfer. We know it would happen, but it
Right.
wasn't a thought in our recruiting meetings. Now it's a thought. Okay, we're going to put this money aside because we know there's going to be at least 2 transfers available. So instead of recruiting 5 in a class, maybe we just recruit 3 out of high school and sit back to see what happens in the portal, right, to get the other 2 and fill those pieces. Where some schools, they're just going off the portal, right? They
Yeah.
know maybe they're a top 20 school, top 25. They're just going to sit and wait and see what top kids, jump onto the portal with good statistics and good numbers and already with proven success at the collegiate level. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely affecting
I
everybody.
I saw it, with just my database of girls in the class of 2024. I mean, I had a big chunk come off in fall of, their big recruiting year, and that's, Paisley Allen's at Georgia, and I've got 4 at Houston. I mean, we got some big stars out there. Tori Edwards is swinging it up there at LSU, but
Yeah.
that was a big group of kids that came off the books in that class. But then the next year they didn't take 8 in each class. The next year for 25s, they took like 4. This year, my 26,
Yeah.
and I've got talent. I'm loaded with talent. And I had,
Mhm.
the big schools coming with just pitcher, catcher, shortstop, maybe a big hitter that they couldn't let go by. But man, I think you're right. They're holding on to some money to see what's going to happen, because you just don't know. And then injury, I'm just seeing a lot of injuries, you know,
Yeah.
and that's hit or
Yeah.
miss.
It's a lot of injury.
So I'm trying to tell the
I don't
26s,
know.
you're okay, but it's gonna happen
Yeah.
really fast this summer. It's gonna be bam, bam, bam.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you've heard about you might know more about it than me, but with they're talking about giving those 2 years back at the JC level, right?
Yeah, so my daughter, Shell
Heard
Bell,
of
the
it.
soccer player, she's
Yeah.
a litigation attorney, and she follows it pretty close. So again, I'm not an attorney. I always have to give my disclaimer. But
Yeah.
the ruling happened for the one football player. And then the NCAA came right back because they knew it was opening up a can of worms. Because, if you read the ruling, it really was that there was no offer that you didn't get those years in NCAA. You were offered 4 years. And so I think then they came back and said, okay, one more year for the class of 25. I don't know, and I haven't seen it, that they've clearly given those 2 years back yet. I think they're trying to piece
Yeah.
it together.
Yeah, well, you and I both know when there's a rumbling going on, it's probably going to happen down the road, right?
Well, and all the
So,
lawyers are at
yeah.
the table. They're going through the document,
Mhm.
and it's clear that it said 4 years, and they might go on a precedence or something like that. But my daughter's convinced that they'll have to do something. But as you and I both know, I love junior college. Some of the best trainers in the country are JUCO coaches. But I also think it
Yes.
weeds out some kids that aren't going to make it.
Yeah.
Instead of
Yeah.
them quitting in your 4-year program, they're kind of, they weed themselves out the freshman and sophomore year if they really don't have the chutzpah to make it all the way. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. But well, I want to thank you again. I wish we had not the blips in the technology, but
Yeah.
we'll have to do it when I come this summer. I'll be there for 2 weeks. Maybe we'll do a live podcast, because Nick is my technology guy, and he's got all the equipment, and maybe we can do an old reunion. So
I
that
would
would
love that. I would
that
love
would
that.
be
Maybe we could do
great.
some stuff on the field or something, and get on the dirt a little bit or something. That would be great. I would love to do that with you. You've always been great, and you do a lot for a lot of young women out there, right? I mean, I'm sure it's in the 500s plus, 600 plus.
658. You know my numbers, but I have
That's
1200.
awesome.
I have almost 1200. I have committed 658. It's crazy. Literally a blessing.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, well, yeah, that's so whatever you need from me, you just let me know. And like I said, I think you're doing some great things for a lot of young women out there. And I'm proud of you and Ed too, man. You guys are incredible. And say hi to Shannon for me for sure.
I will. She's out there battling the teams in Division 2. So she's at
Yeah,
Maryville.
yeah,
If
good
you
for her.
didn't follow that, yeah, she's head coach at
Maryville. Okay.
Maryville. Yeah,
All right.
it's out of St. Louis. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. It's Rawlings home field and everything. It's just beautiful. So.
Oh my God.
All
Well,
right. Well, thank you, my
I'll tell her I said
friends.
hello.
I appreciate you. And
You
then
got it.
I tell everybody go share the space when we're done and we hang up. You can see where you can share it, and it really gets some legs. And then maybe we'll have you on for a repeat.
Sounds great.
All right.
Thanks,
Have a
Sherry. I
good night.
appreciate
Say
you.
hi to the family. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
I
Okay.
will.
Okay.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.